Welcome back. A last dance in Mexico City. It is Sunday night. The Mexico City Grand Prix is over. There's been a 10-point swing in the World Championship, but lots to unpack. Very busy, very rancorous race. Pronouncing that word carefully, not wanting to do a Nick Heidfeld. Ferrari first and third, Lando Norris second, Max Verstappen sixth after a penalty. And yet, unfortunately, Alex, that means we've got to talk a little bit about driving standards again. So shall we sort of fast forward to lap 10-ish, Sean Connery's favourite sport.
No. Okay, yeah, yes, indeed. First of all, I'd just like to be clear to the viewers, obviously we're inside in the media centre because the paddock is being packed down and it's even more touch and go with things potentially falling over on top of us than it was the previous days.
We'll just have cutlery in the background and, people.
And our media centre colleagues walking past the back of the camera thinking we're being complete idiots recording here. But also you should be aware of a slight production disagreement. Connors thinks we should fast forward through the Racing Rules latest drama. I think completely not. Let's go in on it again.
Okay.
Story of the day, Max Verstappen, 2 penalties this time, 2 10-second penalties. And what was interesting post-race, and not great, I think, is suggestions, particularly from Helmut Marko, Red Bull Motorsport advisor, that this is sort of in some way making up for what happened in Austin last week. Obviously, Lando Norris getting the penalty in that case. If that was true, if that was the case, then that's awful from the stewards and officials, but that's not what's happening here.
It's just feeding the bottom half of the internet, isn't it? I think.
That certainly appears to be. Or, just fighting his corner, defending his driver, I do get it. But no, there does seem to be a little bit of confusion as to whether 10 seconds, 5 seconds, what's going on there, because obviously with certain rules for this year, the FIA upped the sanction effectively, and that we're mainly talking about things like track limits. But with this, in this case, FIA officials I spoke to said 10 seconds is the standard penalty. But actually, if we take it back to Austin, Lando Norris getting 5 seconds for overtaking off the track, same officials saying that was mitigating circumstances. It would have been 10 seconds because of the fact that he was clearly in a battle with another car that also went off. They felt 5 seconds was appropriate. So that explains it. I also don't think it's very clear and very helpful. Like that, this is the sort of thing where the complaints about inconsistency can creep in, because it does seem very strange to have 1 5 seconds, 1 10 seconds, and then you're ending up in a situation where sort of the more nefarious thing can be suggested. But anyway, 2 incidents with Max Verstappen and Lando Norris in a single lap this time. Turn 4 on lap 10, Sean Connery's favourite sport. 10-ish, but anyway. It was definitely lap 10, and it was definitely turn 4 and turn 7. Turn 4, I actually, from my point of view, don't know what you thought, Connors, I thought it was slightly fairer than what happened in Austin last week. I thought it was extremely hard racing from Max Verstappen, but he did his classic thing of taking it too far, and it was just over the line this time, and he got slapped with a penalty in Austin last week. I thought he was way over the line. Turn 7, however, simply outrageous, egregious, I've written down here. Seems to be the word of the day. But yeah, I don't know what you thought.
I'm surprised it fitted in that notebook.
Just about.
I was with George Russell on turn 4 being kind of 60-40 when I first looked at it from other angles. I still thought it was a bit sort of 60-40, and then when we watched the onboard and you could sort of see Lando on full lock, Max, a little bit of that. Something I was edging towards, okay, very fair penalty. Turn 7, open and shut case, I think, and all the other drivers thought so as well. Actually, all the other drivers, probably not the right thing, all the other drivers we spoke to kind of agreed, or those who were prepared to venture an opinion. George Russell particularly said that was definite. Lewis Hamilton, amusingly, when asked about it, said, well, I haven't actually seen the incident itself, but when I saw the cloud of dust, I thought, yeah, that's him.
Well, you mentioned the onboards there from Lando Norris's car. This is also particularly interesting for something else a senior Red Bull manager has said, in this case Christian Horner, Red Bull team boss. Effectively, he went out to bat for his man spectacularly. Turned up at his press call armed with GPS trace data sheet, an explanation comparing Lando Norris's fastest lap of the race with what happened with Max Verstappen on lap 10-ish, or whatever we're going with. It was definitely lap 10, which is basically his attempt to say Lando Norris would have never made the corner. But unfortunately, there's other data and the onboard that Horner also highlighted that pretty much blows that out of the water. If you watch Norris's onboard, he's full lock, on and appears to be on a trajectory that at least, okay, maybe 2 of his wheels might have been over, but critically, all 4 wheels I don't think would have been off the track. We'll never know, because as you say, Codders, Verstappen releases the steering ever so slightly, and that's what sends Norris off. Also, if you look at the other GPS trace data of other laps from Lando Norris, the lap before, the lap after, especially the lap after, he brakes very close to where the braking point he chooses in attacking Verstappen, and in both cases clearly makes the corner. The other thing here, the Horner's talking about the incredibly high speed Norris has got. He had DRS. He didn't have it on the lap he set his fastest lap. So yeah, there's a lot of attempting to use data to deflect here. Not a lot of chatting about the terrible pace of the Red Bull car today in comparison. Even, I mean, he couldn't even catch up with the Mercedes cars, and they had a pretty awful race, if an interesting one, with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton racing each other very closely. What was Lewis saying about that in the pen, Goddard?
He said, I mean, firstly, he was absolutely night and day different from how he was the day before after qualifying. He said, I just want to get to the end of the race, man. He's bouncing up and down on the balls of his feet as he does when he's happy.
Do you think that's because Ferrari finished 1 and 3 and he's heading there in 2025? That's got to be a play, isn't it?
Yeah, he's pleased with that. But also, he said he took too much wing out ahead of the race because he thought it was going to be hotter than it was. So throughout his first stint, he had horrendous understeer, and they corrected that at the pit stop. He got the race pace back, and then with a little bit of assistance from George's broken wing, he was able to get him and pass him. And George made it difficult, but as Lewis said, I had 10 laps to do it. I knew I could do it, and it was kind of textbook close racing, which is kind of what we want to see. And Mike Crack said something that was very germane, and I think it sort of plays into this whole wider discussion, in the fact that the DRS zones, or the main DRS zones, have been shortened this race and the last one. It's pushed the overtaking manoeuvres from the DRS zone itself into the corners, and that's why we're getting these sort of slightly iffy moments. But at the same time, that's the sort of wheel-to-wheel racing that people want, rather than the whole DRS, well, I'll breeze past you and then you can breeze past me.
100% take the way it is currently, 100%. But actually, I think now's a perfect time to talk about the race winner.
Yes.
You can see from our stopwatch underneath the bin that this camera is placed on, the glamour as ever, that we're slightly running out of time. And you may reflect, actually, and I think this was perhaps your point, Codders, about why we should not talk about the racing rules stuff first. It's the fact that it's overshadowing another incredible performance from Ferrari, and incredible performance from a Ferrari driver. Fred Vasseur couldn't care less. Thinks it's brilliant that we're all talking about Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, because it means his team could fly under the radar, in the weird contradiction that is, because they're currently winning races. Could, in with a shout of winning every race since the Monza upgrade, which they did win. Potentially could have won in Singapore. Same in Baku. Obviously got to Austin, did win and winning here again. But yeah, Carlos Sainz, absolutely superb. I thought his judgment in, this is something Vasseur highlighted, his judgment in giving Max Verstappen the place back very quickly on lap 1. That also, from Vasseur's point of view, and I think this echoed what I had suspected going into the race. Both Ferrari drivers, but in this case Sainz, very confident in their race pace. Knew he was going to be able to overhaul Max Verstappen, and then did it with a brilliant dive. And I do wonder, potentially, maybe that was a factor in how Max then later drove against Lando Norris. But in terms of Carlos Sainz versus Charles Leclerc, I asked Fred Vasseur what was the difference, because Leclerc was getting pretty close to him once he'd sort of been gratefully let through for the second weekend in a row by Max Verstappen having Lando Norris off the road. Why was Charles suddenly so far back? And Fred did his classic thing of being laughing and charming and not really giving the full answer. But the subtext of what he was saying was Sainz in clear air, absolutely key to his excellent pace, and also Leclerc having to manage various temperatures. Not the case with Lando Norris on the McLaren. I think I asked a question I asked Andrea Stella about cooling was Lando able to push to the end. He answered it in the opposite way. He said, well, he didn't have to do anything when it came to mitigating with the cooling. For the first time, he said, I've come to Mexico, cooling's not been an issue. But yeah, what did you make of Charles Leclerc's moment that might have got him in a little bit of trouble, just the other side of that wall where the FIA press conference is?
Well, I'm not surprised he swore in the press conference, because that was a massive moment of snap oversteer, and it showed his tremendous car control that he was able to rescue it and get back onto the track. Obviously, he lost the position to Lando. I dare say, in a situation like that, where probably his race overalls will survive after a bit of dry cleaning, the underwear, I think he's had a bit of a will from the in-betweeners in the politics exam.
We only watched that episode for the first time last night, and he's already referencing it. Brilliant.
There you go, a bit more up-to-date reference in terms of when we watched it. But I think I'd probably swear as well. And we know the FIA don't like it. The FIA president has a considerable aversion to any sort of foul language in case children pick it up. My thought is that perhaps they should have a separate channel where all the swear words, instead of being bleeped out, are just dubbed over with a completely innocuous word, like the TV versions of 80s movies. And unfortunately, we've gone well over our 10 minutes. So I think, in the immortal words of Eddie Murphy from the TV version of Beverly Hills Cop, we're going to have to get the hell out of here. And that's us. We will be back in Qatar. You'll have some far more professional people dealing with you next week in Brazil.
I thought you were going to swear.